Okay, so at this time we'll have the Sergeant at Arms start us off with morning prayer.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to council and all our listeners. Once again, to Oglala Sioux School for letting us have this meeting here. All the staff come up to the meetings. Say for all the guys left, but the root of now go Oglala to guys like care on me. Okay, all the guys are on the meeting to guys they touch and we and touch. Okay, all the guys are good to guys like after the hand. Got Lochin, that's when you know, wakes you up to guys. I woke up to make you get the woke you up to guys. That was
Councilwoman Helmerson, can you give us some words of encouragement?
Good morning. Also, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Keeley Radio for getting our council meetings on the air and out to the people to hear. You know, it's a really good day today, and we have a lot of agenda items that we will be making decisions on as council representatives. But I would just like to give some words of encouragement out to the youth out there that are striving every day for their education and that they're capable of incredible things in their life, even when challenges make it feel like it's not possible. But we must always remember that strength comes through perseverance and trying. You can never go wrong when you try and trust yourself and embrace yourself and know that you have the power to become something great and incredible despite the obstacles above you. You know, as tribal leaders, that's who we make decisions for as the future of our Oglala Sioux tribe, the future generations out there, and all of our decisions that we make impact them in some way. And I'd also like to encourage our people out there to come to committee meetings. We have committee meetings every day. Come and listen in and see what decisions us as tribal leaders are making for you, for the Oglala Sioux tribe and our future. You know, we have a lot of good things that we work on for this tribe, especially during this administration when it feels like we're a target every single day from the Trump administration. And despite it all, we're still here, we're still fighting, we're still advocating and lobbying for us as people, for our youth as generations to come. Because the impacts that we make today not only affect us today, they affect us generations down the road. And it feels like we're always in a battle with this Trump administration, always targeting us as the first people here on this land. You know, this land is our land. Our generations before us fought with their blood and were killed for this land. You know, they fought to reclaim this land as ours. And even though we're on this reservation with struggling, we're still here, we're still persevering every single day. And as tribal leaders, we must always remember what our ancestors fought for and our treaties to protect us as a sovereign nation and ensure that we'll be here for all of eternity. But I would just like to encourage us to remember our people and make good decisions for our districts. You know, we're their voices, and sometimes it's not always an easy decision, but go with your heart. And just like to say thank you for allowing me to give the words of encouragement here in Allen. You know, this is where I grew up as a little girl, and now I'm a tribal leader. So sometimes I, think back to where I was. I was here as I graduated here from 8th grade as a valedictorian. And back then, throughout my grade school year, I was on the student body. I was a student council representative here. Always advocating for our youth and our peers. And, out of almost 43 graduating 8th grade students here, today there may be only 8 of us that are still alive. A lot of my peers have been either killed or murdered or had car accidents or was, their lives are taken through alcohol or drugs. And out of over 40 of us, only 4 of us went on to graduate high school. And when I think of those statistics, I think of the struggles and battles that our youth face every single day. And we might not know what we face every day. And so we must treat each other with kindness always, because it's a hard life out here on the reservation. Our youth are struggling. Not only do they have to battle with drugs and alcohol, they have to battle with social media. So we just pray for them constantly that they overcome those challenges to become successful in their lives, because we were all once youth here on this reservation. We all were once little kids growing up and looking towards our older generations for guidance and strength and protection. So we must always, as tribal leaders, we must always think of our young ones and the examples that we're setting for them. Dr. Yossi, thank you.
Secretary, roll call.
I just want to say good morning again to the listeners, the visitors, the council, executive board members, and guests, and the local Oyaten. Hoping everybody has a blessed day. Jillian Spotted Bear is excused. Norman Standing Soldier.
Here.
David Poyer. Bo Little White Man.
Here.
George Dreamer Jr.
Present.
Tyler Lunderman. Jackie Sears. Here. Garfield Still. James Cross. Lane Little Thunder is excused. Jeremy Rosales will be late. Dave Kelly.
Present.
Troy Little.
Here.
Brian Jumping Eagle Sr. will be late. Sonia Little Hawk Weston. Here. Lyle Weston.
Present.
Donroy Bosbear. Richard Greenwald Sr.
Here.
Anna Halverson.
Present.
Beef Randall.
Here.
Craig Dillon.
Here.
14 present, 3 absent, 2 excused, 2 late. We established quorum. Again, so echo off the secretary. Good morning to our listeners and listening audience on Keeley Radio, our guests, and tribal council here. We're on day 2 here, so let's try to have a smooth meeting here so we can take care of business. Yes, let's get business done. Open up. So at this time, we're going to go to agenda item 13, the Finance Committee, and I'll turn it over to Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Ordinance of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe mandating program committees to adjust program wages, funded amounts to stabilize programs, improve services, and poverty. Skipping down to the whereas Tribal Ordinance 1722 salary scale ordinance establish a mandatory salary floor for all OST employees, ensuring that no employee is compensated below the minimum wage scale adopted by the tribe. And whereas many OST programs receive federal, state, and private funding that include personnel budgets at wage levels higher than the tribal salary floor, yet current practice does not consistently allow programs to adjust wages to the full funded amount, resulting in underutilization of personnel funds, chronic turnover, diminished service capacity, and instability within essential tribal programs. And whereas stabilizing wages stabilizes programs and ensuring that employees are compensated at the full level intended by funding agency, strengthen recruitment, retention, and service delivery, which are critical needs of the primary reservation. And whereas the reservation continues to experience extreme poverty, unemployment, and economic hardship, ensuring that OST employees receive the full wage levels intended by funding agencies directly contributes to poverty alleviation, household stability, and strengthening of the tribe's institutions. And whereas the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People affirms that Indigenous people have the right to just and fair conditions of employment, the right to improvement of their economic and social conditions, including employment and income security, and the right to maintain and develop their own economic systems. And whereas international indigenous labor standards, including the principles reflected in International Labor Organization Convention number 169, recognize the right of indigenous workers to fair remuneration and the right of indigenous peoples to determine their own development priorities, including labor and compensation system. Whereas the OST Finance Committee has reviewed the issue of wage adjustments to funded levels and recommends approval of this ordinance and the legal findings. The Tribal Council hereby makes the following legal findings. Number one, the Oglala Sioux tribe retains full sovereign authority over wages, compensation systems, and employment conditions for all tribal employees pursuant to the inherent powers of self-government recognized in 1851 and 1868 Fourth Amendment treaties, which are the supreme law of the land under Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution. Number two, no federal law divests the tribe of its authority to determine wages or salary structures. Federal agencies may regulate allowable costs within a grant, but they do not control tribal pay scales, wage parity, and compensation decisions. Federal discrimination laws, including Title VII, do not apply to tribal governments. Number three, the OST Constitution expressly grants the Tribal Council authority to manage tribal economic affairs, protect the welfare of the tribe, and enact employment laws, including wage and compensation policies under Article 4, Section 1F, 1K, and 1W. Number four, Ordinance 1722 established a mandatory tribal salary floor and affirms the tribe's sovereign authority to set grade steps and minimum wage standards for all tribal employees. OST Ordinance 1822 established exclusive tribal procedures and remedies for employment matters, defines discrimination solely under tribal law, and confirms that the OST employment is governed by tribal and not federal standards. 6. Federal grants, including 2 CFR subsection 200.430, require only the wages charged to a grant be reasonable and necessary. and do not require equal pay for equal work, uniform pay across programs, or suppression of wages below funded levels. The tribe has the sovereign authority to adjust wages to the full personnel amounts approved by funding agencies, provided that no wage falls below the minimum salary floor established by tribal law, ensuring that employees are compensated at the full funded level, strengthening program stability, reduced turnover, improved service delivery, and advances the general welfare of Oglala Sioux. 9. International Indigenous Rights Framework supports. Do not find the tribe's sovereign decision to adjust wages to funded levels. 10. No provision of this ordinance creates discrimination under the tribal law, as wage adjustments mandated applies uniformly to all programs and employees and remains fully consistent with the tribal salary floor and existing tribal employment standards. Now therefore be it ordained, mandatory wage adjustment to funded levels. All program committees overseeing OST programs shall authorize and require wage adjustments to the full personnel amounts approved by the funding agency, provided no wage shall fall below the minimum salary floor established by Tribal Ordinance 1722. Submission requirement. Program directors shall submit wage adjustment requests to their respective committee with a documentation of the funding agency's approved personnel budget. B, the proposed wage adjustments, and C, a written statement confirming compliance with the Tribal Ordinance 1722 and that the adjustment remains within the funded amount. Committee action timeline. All tribal committees shall act on wage adjustments requested within 30 days to ensure timely implementation, maintain program stability, and prevent personnel loss due to wage stagnation. Supersession. This ordinance shall take effect immediately upon approval and shall supersede, repeal, and replace all prior inconsistent laws of the Oglala Sioux tribe. Certification. Motion.
Motion by Councilman Little Whiteman, second by Councilman Little. Roll call.
Beef Randall,
Yes.
Sonia Little Weston, Troy Little,
Yes.
David Weir,
Yes.
Craig Dillon, David Kelly,
Yes.
Norman Standing Soldier,
Yes.
Richard Greenwald Sr.,
Yes.
Lyle Weston,
Yes.
Bo Little White Man,
Yes.
Jackie Sears, James Cross, George Dreamer Jr.,
Yes.
Anna Halverson,
Yes.
Unanimous 14, motion carried.
Okay. Second one, resolution of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe authorizing, directing, and approving the write-off of previous debts between the tribe and Periwinkle Casino. Whereas the Periwinkle Casino is an economic business development entity of the Oglala Sioux Tribe, and whereas in 2009, the tribal allocations from the casino were set at $125,000 per month, and the casino made $1 million, leaving a remainder of $500,000 recorded as payable and due, and approval was given to Kevin Lean to write off this balance, but the forgiveness of debt was not done in writing and remains as an unreceived repayment in the tribe's financial records. And whereas in 2011, the Oglala Sioux tribe borrowed $250,000 from the casino cash account pursuant to resolution that authorized monthly payments of $10,000, and these payments were never made. and whereas in 2020, the casino was shut down due to COVID restrictions for the majority of the year and was only able to make one tribal allocation payment in the amount of $239,940 and unable to make the remaining tribal allocations due to the amount of $1,260,060, which remain unreceived payments in the tribe's financial records. And whereas in 2021, the casino was still impacted by the effects of COVID restrictions and were unable to make their $568,000 of their tribal allocations. And whereas due to the impact of these old debts on the financial records of the Oglala Sioux tribe, the circumstances surrounding the debt and the best course of action is to write them off as bad debt. And whereas the Finance Committee of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council has considered this matter and recommends that the tribal treasurer and the Finance Department be authorized to write these debts off as bad debt and remove them from the unreceived payments. Now therefore be it resolved that the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe hereby authorizes, directs, and approves the treasurer of the Oglala Sioux Tribe to take all necessary actions to write off debts owed to the tribe from the Prairie Wind Casino from the year 2009, 2020, 2021 in the amount of $500,000, $1,260,060, and $568,000 respectively, and the debt owed to the casino at the amount of $250,000. Certification. Motion.
Motion by Councilman Little Whiteman. Do I have a second?
Could you tell Mr. Dillon to
What? I didn't hear you. Okay, second by Councilman Greenwald. Roll call.
Dave Randall. Sonia Little Hawk Weston. Troy Little.
No.
David Poyer. Craig Dillon. David Kelly.
No.
Norman Standing Soldier.
No.
Richard Greenwald Sr.
Yes.
Lyle Weston.
Abstain.
Bo Little White Man.
Yes.
Jackie Sears. James Cross. George Dreamer Jr.
Yes.
Anna Halverson. No.
Nine yes, 4 no, 1 abstained. Okay, motion carried.
Okay. Resolution of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe authorizing and directing and approving the write-off of previous debts of the East Wind Casino. Whereas the East Wind Casino is the economic business development entity of the Oglala Sioux Tribe, and whereas in 2020, 2021, 2022, the East Wind Casino was unable to make portions of their rental payment to the Oglala Sioux Tribe in the respective amounts of $74,685, $54,000, and $7,500. And this unpaid rent remains as an unreceived payment for the Lake Creek District. And whereas the East Wind Casino needed a loan for operation from the Oglala Sioux Tribe with the amount due of $20,000 and this unpaid debt remains as an unpaid debt in the casino's financial record, and an unreceived payment for the Oglala Sioux tribe. And whereas due to the impact of these old debts on the financial records of the Eastern Casino and the circumstances surrounding the debt, the best course of action is to write them off as bad debt. And whereas the Finance Committee of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council has considered this matter and recommends that the tribal treasurer and the finance department be authorized to write off these debts as bad debt and remove them from unreceived payments. Now therefore be it resolved that the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe has hereby authorized, directs, and approves the treasurer of the Oglala Sioux Tribe to take all necessary action to write off debt owed to the tribe from the Eastern Casino from the years 2020, 2021, 2022 for rental payments in the amount of $74,685, $54,000, and $7,500 respectively, and the debt owed by the casino in the amount of $20,000 for the total write-off of $156,185 certification. Motion.
Motion by Councilman Little White Man, second by Councilman Standing Soldier. Roll call.
Beef Randall,
I'll vote yes if they up my free play. Yeah.
Sonia Little Hawk Weston, Troy Little,
Yes.
David Clear,
Yes.
Craig Dillon,
Yes.
David Kelly,
No.
Norman Standing Soldier,
Yes.
Richard Greenwald Sr.,
Yes.
Lyle Weston,
No.
Bo Little White Man,
Yes.
Jackie Sears, James Cross, George Dreamer Jr.,
Yes.
Anna Halverson,
No.
11 yes, 3 no, motion carried.
Okay, next one. Resolution of the Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe approving the Baker Tilly LLP contract for strategic assessment of the Oglala Sioux Tribe broadband portfolio. Whereas Baker Tilly has submitted a proposal to assist the evaluation of the Oglala Sioux Tribe's current broadband initiatives, infrastructure projects, and regulatory requirements. And whereas the Finance Committee reviewed the request for Baker Tilly to perform strategic assessments of the broadband initiatives and forward the agreement for approval by the Tribal
one for
Council.
Brockman.
Okay, I lost my place. Therefore be it resolved that the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe approves the master service agreement with Baker Tilly LTD along with the statement of work for strategic assessment of the Oglala broadband portfolio attached to be paid from general fund. And be it further resolved that the President or in his absence, the Vice President is authorized to take such action necessary to effectuate this resolution. Certification. Motion.
Motion by Councilman Little White Man. Second by Councilman Standing Soldier. Question, go ahead.
So, Bo, is this a contract that's outside of what they already do for us? So it's a separate contract then?
Yes.
Okay.
Roll call.
Beef Randall,
Yeah.
Sonia Little Hawk Weston, Troy Little,
Yes.
David Clear, Craig Dillon,
Yes.
David Kelly,
No.
Norman Standing Soldier,
Yes.
Richard Greenwald Sr.,
Yes.
Lyle Weston,
Yes.
Bo Little White Man,
Yes.
Jackie Sears, James Cross, George Dreamer Jr.,
Yes.
Anna Halverson.
Yes.
Thirteen yes, 1 no, motion carried.
Okay. Resolution of the Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe approving the Baker Tilly LLP contract for accounting work for the years 2024, 2025, and 2026. Whereas Baker Tilly has submitted a proposal to assist with the 2024 and 2025 pre-audit financial statements, accounting oversight services for the fiscal year 2026, pursuant to the attached master agreement and scope of work. And whereas the Oglala Sioux Tribe needs continued pre-audit service for the 2024 and 2025 audits, and whereas the need to complete these audits is critical for the OST, and whereas pursuant to the requirements of the OST procurement manual, section 05.66 or 600, non-competitive negotiation, Treasurer Cora Y. Orris has submitted written approval, whereas the Finance Committee reviewed the request for non-competitive negotiations with Baker Tilly and forward the agreement for approval by the Tribal Council. Now therefore be it resolved that the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council, the Oglala Sioux Tribe, approves the Master Services Agreement with Baker Tilly LTD attached herein for pre-audit preparation for the fiscal years 24 and 25 and accounting oversight for fiscal year 2026 to be paid from the general fund. And be it further resolved that the President, or in his absence, the Vice President, is authorized to take such action if necessary to effectuate this resolution. Certification, motion.
Motion by Councilman Little White Man, second by Councilman Standing Soldier. Question, go ahead.
Question for maybe the attorney. What's the difference between like a LLC and a LTD with these contracts? Because we were told are they is there one certified and one not certified? I guess if you could. Okay.
LLT.
They're both forms of companies. An LLC is a limited liability company. An LLP is a limited liability partnership. So the company itself has limited liability, but when you're dealing with professionals who provide professional services, for example, attorneys cannot avoid liability by forming a limited liability company. You want to make sure with your accountants that they do accept liability for gross misconduct or errors in their accounting services.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilwoman House.
You know, I just wanted this for the record. You know, for months, we've tried to get a new auditor to run these audits concurrent with each other so that we're up to date, that we're getting our yearly audits done so that we can become compliant with our audits. And it just seems that it's been circumvented in all different ways to have the same auditing firm do our audits for the tribe. You know, we even went back in December and we received funding from BIA to hire a new auditor so that we could get these audits done in a timely manner so that we're on time. You know, it just seems like it's been circumvented so much that now we're in a position where we're having to approve, well, I'm not going to approve it, but that the years 2024, 2025, and 2026 are already going to be obligated, even though we have funds to have another auditor come in to help with these audits as well. So I just wanted to say that for the record. Thank you.
Councilman Little Hawk Weston and Councilman Weston.
Yeah, I guess with this resolution, I guess with the Baker Tilly LLP contract for accounting work, they're only doing the accounting of the 24, 25, and 26 is how we're understanding it. And I think Cora made mention of that yesterday, but also she did mention that there's another auditing group that did call her and will be applying. So I think with Councilwoman Halverson's, question just now, I think is relevant to that, because we also would like to see our audits completed in a timely manner, and so this would help that out in working side by side. So I'm hoping that this auditing firm will get back with her and maybe submit something, so that can happen. So I just wanted to make mention of that.
Councilman Weston.
Thank you, Chair. Going back to what Councilman Little Hawk Weston was referring to with the legal, the LLP, on that resolution that we just passed, or that ordinance that we just passed, number 4, on the top there, it lists Baker Tilly as an LLP, and further down by the certification, it's LTD. I don't know if that's a typo or not, but I think that's where the confusion came in with that LLP and LTD. And then on number 5, it's listed as LLP again.
The initials LTD just means D. D is in David, means limited. Baker Tilly,
So is it like they're presenting as a different company for LTD?
no,
And then at the top there, it lists them as LLP. And that sounds like 2 different companies to me.
it's not 2 different companies, it's one company. In the
Is it a typo then?
It's a typo in your resolution, and it should be corrected in the be it resolved.
Okay, that's what I wanted to bring up. Thank you.
Councilman Kelly.
I guess I'm pretty confused. I thought we addressed this issue already. But to me, it looks like there's 3 different contracts for Baker Tilly and their master service agreements. Correct? I'm counting 3. Resolution 3, 4, 5, and possibly 6.
Dave, there's only 2 for the broadband and for the audit.
Okay, so one of them says the 2024 audit, so how many contracts how many contracts do we actually have with Baker Tilly currently? Because, hell, it seems like we're continuously paying them more and more and more and giving them more and more contracts, which, you know, I don't see where we have the money after looking at the financial documents from yesterday's meeting. And now, since we got a master service agreement for the broadband, isn't there one that we're reading where they want a strategic assessment? Which, basically, what is that? I guess I'm confused. Sorry.
Just briefly, Mr. Kelly, if I can. Okay, so there was a memo that the treasurer, Ms. Carl Whitehorse, had sent you guys last year regarding the approval of the contract with Baker Tilly, and that was dated February 6, 2025. That is the only contract currently with Baker Tilly. And I believe that these 2 reflect a new master service agreement that with Baker Tilly, and the attached memo is for this year, February 24th, 2026. In addition to the broadband that you had just passed.
So we're approving 3 today, all for Baker Tilly. Or is it 2?
I believe the first one, Ms. Whitehurst did say that it was for audit prep only.
Earlier in this administration, we went after funding from the BIA because we didn't have money for an auditing firm. So I went to the BIA and we secured that funding. I don't know what happened to that there. That funding is still there, and it was passed by this council to utilize it, to bring an outside company in. So I guess I'm a little confused myself. That funding is still there for another outside firm to come in here just to help out with that.
Okay, so it's been advertised nationally, but nobody's applying to work with us.
Sure. Go ahead, Councilman Weston.
So on this resolution here, there's no amounts in there, but in the master contract here, it lists 230,000. Shouldn't that be on the resolution too? Legal? Should that be on this resolution too?
So, and why don't we, since the attorney for this committee is on the Zoom, and Cora Whitehorse is also on the meeting, why don't we address the questions to them?
Okay.
They know what these contracts are.
So, which resolution are we speaking about? I just got off.
Baker Tilly, resolution of the Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe approving Baker Tilly LLP contract for accounting work for the year 2024, 2025, and 2026, but it lists no amount on the resolution. And in the master agreement here, it lists 230,000. So we're wondering why isn't it on the resolution? It's left blank on the resolution.
I can add that, Cora has her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if the attorneys had a response, and then she's next. No. Okay, so if you didn't have a response, I'll turn it over to Treasurer. Treasurer, are you on?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, it sounds like there's a little confusion there. There's two parts to the audit. We have two different firms. Baker Tilly helps the tribe with the audit prep.
Cora, it's not the problem with who it is, it's the resolution doesn't list the $230 fee.
That's the maximum amount. It might not even be 230,000. It depends on the hours. If you look on the agreement in the packet attached to the resolution, it has the amount of the fees for who does the work, right? Can you see that?
Yep.
I don't have it in front of me, but it has the amount, so it's based on the hours that they work for the tribe. So if you want to put a $230,000 maximum on there, you can do that.
Yes, I'd feel much better if it had it on there.
Yeah, you can do that. That's fine. Maybe Georgette can add it. But there's two different parts of an audit. The first part is the audit prep. They're the ones that help us to get our financials in order, and then they communicate with us between the auditors. So we're all on one group. Remember I told you guys about the calls we have on Tuesdays? On Tuesdays we meet with the auditors and the CPAs to ensure that we're sharing all the data that they need. So when an audit is done, first we submit our financials, and then it's reviewed by the CPAs to ensure that they're correct, and then it goes, they send it to the auditors. The auditors decide which programs are major programs, and they request samples from the tribe of what they want to see. Samples are the financial records regarding whatever programs they're looking at. And once they send in the list of samples, then we upload it into the portal. We send it to the auditors, they review them, and then they come to the tribe and review the physical financial documents at the tribe. And then after they do that, then they submit their audit and findings to the tribe. And we bring that back once it's done. So Baker Tilly's part is to do the audit prep, to help us to prepare for the auditors to come. And then Whipsley, who is our current auditor, they come in and review all the documents. And then once they're done, they send back the findings. And the Baker Tilly will help us to complete the corrective action plan. So we did advertise for 24 and 25, and Whipley said they are still interested, and we did receive one inquiry about 25. So they requested documents to review first, so we sent them back to them, and hopefully they send in a proposal. That way we can do 24 and 25 at the same time. Because that was our plan, to do 24 and 25 at the same time so we could get them done as soon as possible, before 25 is due.
Yep, and the only thing we had a question about was just that amount being on the resolution.
Right.
And then we can vote on it now.
Georgette can add it. And that other agreement with OLT, that one was requested by committee because they had a CPA for a short period, but he left before Randy left. And they haven't had one since. So they haven't had an accountant. So their documents, they've been working for the 2024 or 2023, they've been working with Baker Tilly already, and the committee requested that they do, what is it called? Oh, I just had it. The committee requested that they do there was some kind of assessment. But that was requested by committee.
Okay, we have a question. Councilwoman Little Hall, question.
Yeah, I think that, I did mention to you, Cora, by text, that I think OLT did hire another auditor, another CPA after Randy left with that other CPA. So I said maybe you could check with Tawny, but I do know that they hired another CPA.
Okay, she hasn't said anything, and she's been working with Tony and Gwen from Baker Tilly on 2023 information for the last few months.
Okay, we're gonna run the motion. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, one more question.
So I just have a question. So in their proposal, it says due to the unknown timing of the external audit, the scope of services does not include additional audit support for the external audit. We're happy to support the tribe, but we'll look to execute a separate scope of services once the timing of engagement is known. We are not being engaged to prepare, compile, review, or audit financial statements of the tribe. Due to the urgent nature of OST's need to catch up on past and delinquent audits, we are unable to evaluate expenditures claimed under each federal award and program for cost allowability and grant expenditure overages. While reviewing detailed activity in support of other audit preparation and reconciliation services, anything comes to our matter regarding these matters we will bring to the attention. You know, it seems to me that this pre-audit work is mostly done by tribal staff, because everywhere in here it mentions tribal staff will develop, you know, all these accrued liabilities and all these other deferred grant revenues. And it sounds like with cash and investments, it says tribal staff will identify any missing transactions not reported during their daily duties and bank recs, and tribal staff will report missing activity. You know, a lot of this could be helped with having that detailed support on, I don't know if there's, the MIP system is not working properly or what, but we shouldn't even have any missing transactions. But a lot of the detailed services in this contract seem focused on tribal staff doing all of the work. So, you know, it seems like we have a lot of audit accounting staff that are already working on this. So is there, you know, I just don't agree that they're not wanting to, that they're depending on the tribe to do much of the work.
They actually are. The accountants upstairs, the reconciliation staff, and our records department, they do most of the work. Baker Tilly is a CPA firm that comes in and helps us prepare. So if we don't have the records, or if our accountants made a mistake, or if there was coding errors, they help the accountants. They're just guidance. They don't actually like come in, because as a CPA who is helping with audit prep, they cannot do any journal entries. That's the responsibility of the tribe and their staff. They cannot make changes. They're just overseeing and giving guidance. So it is the tribe's responsibility, and the tribe does do the work.
Yeah, and I understand that from this, that the majority of the work is done by tribal staff. You know,
Right.
this is exactly why we need a CPA in our tribe, so that they're able to conduct these services, so that we're not paying double the cost of what we're needing to do to get our audits current. You know, I just don't like it that this company is not wanting to do, well, not only not provide additional scope of services, that they're going to come back later to the tribe for more funding, but it just seems like a lot of the support is already done within our tribe. But I understand about audits, I understand about pre-audit work, you know, I understand all of that. I'm just saying we have the funds that we need to hire a CPA. You know, that should be important to us, to hire a CPA firm. You know, we've been at finance for years, even with the comptroller position right now. You know, we ask that we turn that into a CPA for the funds that we use to pay for a comptroller. You know, we just really need to be serious about our tribe's accounting system. Thank you.
I agree, and I think that if you look at the fees, on that fee schedule, you see how much a CPA is paid? If you multiply that by 2,080 hours, that's how much we would have to pay someone to be there full time.
And that's how much we're paying this pre-audit firm. And we're guaranteeing a contract for 3 years. You know, with that amount of money, you know, I just think that we need to, that seems pretty advanced to pay for 3 years in advance when we could be utilizing that money for a CPA.
But it's not advanced, and we're in 2026.
But we're still doing
Right
pre-audit
now.
work for 2023.
No, we're done with 2023. We still have to do 24, 25, and 26. So that's what the contract is for. 24, which has already happened, 25, which was last year, and 26, which is the current year.
When is that going to be completed?
23
Because
is...
their schedule is, talks about 2027, and we're not even in 2027 yet.
Right, but 2023 is currently being reviewed by the auditors. I believe there was only 8 documents that Records was looking for yesterday. And then 2024, the accountants have already started on the financials for it. They just need the guidance and review of the CPAs. And as soon as that is complete, they'll start the financials for 2025. So we should be caught up by September if we can continue to work. But if we have to start this process over, we have to advertise for a new audit prep team, a CPA team, and then that takes a while. So that would put us back at least 3 months, plus another month to get approved by council. So I think in the interest of getting these audits expedited, this contract should be approved so we can get it done.
Okay, thank you, Cora.
This is Georgia. I just had a clarifying question. I'm not sure where I am in the line.
Go ahead, Georgia.
So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page because my understanding of this contract is that the fees are $195,000 for the 2024 work, $200,000 for the 2025 work, and then $230,000 for the 2026 work, which includes the 75 hours per month and then the year-end work. And so the total that it would be capped at would be $625,000, not $230,000.
Right, I thought it was 230 per year, but yeah.
Okay, so we have motions on the floor, so we're gonna run it. Secretary, roll call. With, was that with amendments there, Councilman Weston? Councilman Weston, with the amendment you suggested, you wanted an amount?
Yes, on the resolution, yes.
Okay. Roll call.
If I may, Georgette, will you be inserting those into the resolution and then sending it to us as amendment?
Yes, yep,
Okay.
I'm working on that right now.
Okay, thank you. Beef Randall?
Yes.
Okay, let's recognize Councilwoman Spotted Bear at 11:21.
Sonia Little Hawk Weston? Troy Little?
Yes.
David Clear? Craig Dillon? David Kelly?
No.
Jillian Spotted Bear?
Yes.
Norman Standing Soldier?
Yes.
Richard Greenwald Sr.?
Yes.
Lyle Weston?
Yes.
Olin Whiteman?
Yes.
Jackie Sears? James Cross?
Yes.
George Dreamer Jr.? Anna Halverson? No.
We'll recognize Councilman Rosales at 11:22.
Mr. Rosales, would you like to vote?
Yes.
Your vote is yes.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Fourteen yes, 2 no, motion carried.
That's it for the resolutions and ordinances, but there was a discussion of the chief of staff position.
On that, go ahead, Councilwoman Sears.
I think that came to finance and we just, because of the increase that the chief of staff was asking in salary, but that I think it's probably a moot issue now. So we'll just leave that up to when you do present the chief of staff in the future, then they can work on the negotiations on salaries then with finance.
Yes, go ahead.
I think are we going to discuss an acting chief of staff?
Right now, I can answer that right now. Right now, I just have 2 candidates. We're still in the process of reviewing the candidates, and but as temporary, right now, I think we're gonna the assistant chief of staff, we're gonna look into to seat that person temporarily until we do get a chief of staff. Go ahead.
President, could we go into executive on this issue? Because we do want to discuss some things with this committee, council,
Okay,
attorney. Yeah.
motion by Councilwoman Little Hawk Weston.
Go into executive.
Yes. Second by Councilwoman Sears. Roll call.
Jeremy Rosales,
No.
Steve Randall,
Yes.
Sonia Little Hawk Weston, Troy Little,
Yes.
David Poyer. No. Craig Gillen. David Kelly.
No.
Jillian Spotted Bear.
No.
Norman Standing Soldier. Richard Greenwald Senior. No. Lyle Weston.
Yes.
Bo Little White Man.
No.
Jackie Sears.
Uh-huh.
James Cross. George Streamer Jr. Anna Halverson.
Yes.
Eight yes, 7 no, 1 not voting, motion carried. We'll go into executive.
All right, we're going to executive. We'll be back.
Sergeant Arms.